Welcome to Somali Nexus, the space where history, culture, and knowledge come alive. Let me start with a question. Have you ever wondered how ancient sailors crossed vast oceans without the aid of compasses, satellites, or modern maps, especially in places as unpredictable as the Horn of Africa? The answer lies in a remarkable but often overlooked tradition, the cartography of the Somali people. Long before European explorers drew their first charts, Somali civilizations were developing intricate ways of mapping their world. These were not just sketches of coastlines. They were living systems of knowledge, crafted through observation of stars, winds, rivers, and trade routes. Some maps may have been drawn on camel hide or wooden tablets, while others lived in the memory of poets and navigators, encoded in verse and rhythm. In today's episode, we journey into this forgotten world of Somali mapping, a tradition that sustained bustling ports like Mogadishu, Zayla, Berbera, Hafun, and Barawa, connected inland caravans to distant seas, and helped shape global trade for centuries. More than tools of navigation, these maps reflected a profound understanding of geography, culture, and identity. So join me as we uncover the ingenuity of Somali cartographers, the legacy they left behind, and why their story still matters today. If you enjoy these explorations, don't forget to follow Somali Nexus and subscribe, share this episode with friends, and be part of keeping Somali knowledge alive. This is Ancient Somali Cartography, Mapping the Horn, right here on Somali Nexus. We all know those stories, right? The European explorers, their maps slowly filling in the blanks on a new world. We hear about continents being discovered, as if, these huge oceans were just empty spaces before they showed up. But what if that world wasn't new at all?
Exactly.
What if it was already deeply known, its oceans mapped and navigated by, other incredibly sophisticated civilizations? Civilizations whose contributions were just sort of written out of the main story.
That's precisely the question.
So today we're taking a deep dive into exactly that. We're looking at the hidden cartographic legacy of ancient Somalia and the wider Horn of Africa. And this is just about dusty old maps.
Not at all.
It's really about a whole different way of understanding the world, one that seriously challenges the narratives we usually hear. Our mission, really, is to peel back those layers of, oversight, maybe.
Yeah, oversight's a good word.
And uncover this lost art of Somali mapping. The methods they use, the tools, how incredibly important these maps were for what was clearly a powerful maritime civilization. Get ready for some moments that might make you go, aha. It can really reframe how you think about ancient global trade, and honestly, just sheer human ingenuity.
It's truly fascinating when you dig into it. The Horn of Africa, modern Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Djibouti. They developed these incredibly sophisticated systems for navigation, for cartography.
Right?
They were absolutely vital for the region's, its wealth and influence. Yet, like you said, their story is still largely hidden from our, standard understanding.
So these weren't just lines on hide or wood?
Oh no, much more than that. Think of them as blueprints. Blueprints for really complex navigation strategies, detailed trade routes. They were reflections of this amazing cultural ingenuity that let these societies just thrive for ages.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit. We know the Horn is strategically vital, a real crossroads. But what were the specific geographical challenges? The environment itself must have really pushed them, forced them almost to get so good at mapping and navigating.
That's a great question, because the geography there is, it's both a huge advantage and a massive challenge. You've got this incredible spot right at the meeting point of the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, so it's this natural bridge connecting Africa, the Middle East, Asia, even Europe, indirectly.
And Somalia's coastline, it's huge, isn't it?
The longest on the continent, over 3,000 kilometers. So yes, perfect for maritime trade exploration, but incredibly dangerous too.
How so?
Well, the coast itself is littered with rocky outcrops, countless little islands, really dangerous reefs hiding just below the surface. Then you add the Indian Ocean itself, vast, unpredictable, with these powerful currents, shifting monsoon winds. Honestly, for someone who didn't know what they were doing, it'd be a nightmare, a death trap really. But the ancient Somali people, they weren't put off by this at all. They looked at this challenging environment, and they transformed it. It became the absolute lifeblood of their trade networks.
Danger turned into opportunity. That's quite something. But, navigating that, surely they didn't succeed every time. Failure must have been catastrophic. How did they learn from that? How did the culture adapt?
That's a really critical point. Success definitely wasn't guaranteed failure. I mean, shipwrecks, losing valuable cargo, losing lives. It was a brutal teacher.
Yeah,
But they did succeed often enough and consistently enough to build these powerful trading city-states. By the 10th century, places like Mogadishu, Zayla, Barawa, these weren't just villages. They were thriving, bustling, cosmopolitan trade hubs, really sophisticated centers. They were exporting incredibly valuable goods: ivory, gold, frankincense.
things the rest of the world desperately wanted.
Exactly. And sending them to markets as far off as Arabia, India, even China. This wasn't just local trade.
No, it's global.
It was complex, long-distance global commerce happening centuries ago. And it was all built on this deep, hard-won, experiential understanding of these very dangers we talked about.
It really does make you rethink the whole timeline of global sophistication, doesn't it? But okay, if they were that successful, that connected, why is this legacy so well lost? Why aren't Somali maps studied alongside Greek or Roman ones in history class? It feels like a huge piece of the puzzle is just gone.
You've absolutely hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
The standard story of ancient maps, like you said, it focuses on Greece, Rome, the Arab world.
right?
The Horn of Africa often just gets skipped, and there are reasons. A huge part of Somali cartography was oral. This incredible wealth of geographical knowledge, the routes, the hazards, the stars to follow, it was passed down meticulously, generation to generation,
Through stories.
through stories, legends, complex poems, chants, embedded in their oral traditions. Without a widespread tradition of writing these specific maps down on materials that would survive millennia, sadly, a lot of that specific detail faded from wider historical memory.
So it just disappeared.
Not entirely, but it became fragmented. What we have now is archaeological evidence, tantalizing hints, but not always the full visual map we might picture.
That makes sense, sadly, but okay. If they weren't commonly using parchment or paper, what did they use? How did they physically make maps? When they did make them, what materials were they using?
Oh, they were incredibly resourceful. They used what their environment provided. So instead of fragile paper, think about durable, flexible camel hide.
Camel hide?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It resists the salty air, the desert heat. You can roll it up, carry it on a ship or across land. Ideal, really.
Makes sense.
And for more localized maps, or maybe specific features, they carved onto wooden tablets using symbols, abstract marks for rivers, mountains, maybe safe anchorages, important trade routes.
Okay.
And what's really amazing, there's even evidence, archaeological finds of celestial maps carved into stone artifacts.
Maps of the stars on stone?
Exactly. Which tells us they weren't just mapping the earth and sea beneath them, but also the heavens above them. Understanding the stars was absolutely fundamental to their navigation.
Wow, celestial maps on stone. That's incredible. But it brings up that big question, doesn't it? How did they use all this? How did ancient Somali sailors actually cross these huge stretches of open ocean? I mean, weeks, maybe months, out of sight of land, without a compass, without GPS? How?
Right? That's the core of their genius, really.
Yeah,
Celestial navigation was their key innovation. They weren't just guessing. These sailors had an incredibly deep, nuanced understanding of the stars, the sun's path, the moon's phases. They used the precise positions of these celestial bodies to plot their course across the Indian Ocean.
like using the sky as a map?
Essentially, yes. And this knowledge, again, mostly passed down orally, generation after generation. It was also intrinsically tied to something else crucial: the monsoon winds.
Ah, the winds.
Absolutely critical. Those predictable seasonal winds basically dictated when you could sail and where you could sail efficiently. To India, to Arabia, the winds were the engine of their trade network. Knowing the North Star, other constellations, that allowed for remarkable precision even when land was just a distant memory.
So it's like this complex system blending astronomy and meteorology, all passed down through stories. But how reliable could that be? I mean, what happens on a cloudy night? Or if the monsoon shifts unexpectedly, your sky GPS is suddenly offline.
Right, that's a fair point, and they definitely face those challenges. The ocean isn't always predictable.
No kidding.
But their system wasn't just about perfect conditions. It was about deep layered knowledge. They knew how to read cloud patterns, wave formations, even the behavior of birds and marine life. These were all supplementary cues. And those oral maps we mentioned, they were vital here. These weren't just simple directions. They were like living databases embedded in stories and songs.
Living databases?
Yeah, containing incredibly detailed knowledge. Coastal landmarks, hidden currents, dangerous reefs, fresh water sources, the most efficient routes depending on the season. It was a mental toolkit for almost any situation. So it was holistic, adaptive, not rigid at all.
That idea of a living guide, a map that learns and adapts, that's really powerful. It makes me wonder, though, what did these maps look like? Were they trying for scale like we think of maps today? Or was it a totally different way of seeing the world?
It was fundamentally different, a different way of knowing, of representing space. They weren't generally aiming for that kind of precise scaled accuracy we expect now.
So, not like a photograph from above?
Not at all. Instead, they conveyed essential information using abstract symbols. A certain symbol might mean dangerous reef here, another safe anchorage, another prominent cliff used for sightings. Experienced sailors would instantly understand the meaning. It wasn't just a different style, it was a shift in purpose. European maps often focused on static location, where things are. These Somali maps, especially the oral ones, were more dynamic. They were instructions for action.
Instructions?
Yes, not just where something is, but how to navigate it, when to approach it, what dangers to look out for, where to find resources. It's navigational intelligence, not just geographical coordinates. That's a really profound intellectual contribution that often gets overlooked.
A map as a dynamic set of instructions that is profound, but okay. With so much being oral, symbolic, how do we prove this today? What concrete evidence points to this level of sophistication?
That's always the challenge with oral traditions, but the archaeological record provides strong supporting evidence. We find shipwrecks, for instance, along the Somali and East African coasts.
Right?
These wrecks contain cargo from distant lands, and the construction of the ships themselves speaks volumes about their seafaring capabilities. You don't build ships like that or carry those goods without knowing exactly where you're going and how to get back. And then there are the ancient ports themselves, Mogadishu, Zayla, Barawa, others. The sheer scale of these trade centers, the remnants of docks and warehouses, it all points to vast, well-managed networks.
And any direct map evidence?
Sometimes within these sites, we find carvings or inscriptions on stone or pottery that seem to reflect geographical knowledge, reinforcing the idea that maps, physical, symbolic, or oral, were absolutely central to their success.
Okay, so let's zoom out then. We've established the sophistication. What does this all mean for the wider world? How did this knowledge, these unique maps, actually impact global affairs beyond the Horn of Africa?
Okay, connecting this to the bigger picture, their impact was huge, far-reaching. As early as the 10th century, maybe even earlier, these Somali city-states were major players in global trade.
Key players.
Absolutely key. Their cartographic knowledge, their navigational skill, was essential for linking Africa with the Arabian Peninsula, with India, even distant China. These maps weren't just tools for sailors. They were fundamental to building and sustaining the trade relationships that shaped the entire Indian Ocean world for centuries.
And beyond just trade.
Oh yeah, they were diplomatic tools too. Think about it. Knowing the geography of your neighbors, the safe passages, the dangerous coasts, that's powerful information. It allowed Somali leaders to negotiate from strength, maybe offer safe passage to allies, or subtly warn off rivals by demonstrating superior knowledge of the shallow waters. It wasn't just about moving goods. It was sophisticated maritime diplomacy, using maps and geographical intel to build alliances, manage competition, often without conflict.
That's fascinating. Maps as diplomatic instruments. But given how different their approach was oral, symbolic, how did this knowledge interact with, say, the more formal written map-making happening elsewhere? Like, could an Arab or later a European navigator actually use this Somali knowledge? It seems like different languages almost.
That's a great question, and this is where it gets really interesting. There was a bridge. Take the famous 15th century Arab navigator, Ahmad ibn Majid.
Heard of him? Hugely important figure.
Absolutely. One of the giants of medieval navigation. Well, historical sources suggest he was heavily influenced by Somali maritime knowledge. He didn't just sail into the Indian Ocean blind. He learned from the people who had mastered it for centuries.
So he consulted with Somali sailors?
It seems very likely. He even apparently relied on local pilots and their knowledge when he was guiding the Portuguese, like Vasco da Gama, during their early voyages down the East African coast.
Wait, really? He helped the Portuguese using Somali knowledge?
That's what the evidence points towards. Think about the implication. The navigational expertise honed by Somali mariners over centuries, directly informed, and you could argue, enabled the very European voyages that are often credited with discovering these routes. It suggests the age of discovery in this part of the world had deep, unacknowledged African roots. That really flips the script on how we usually think about global exploration and who is teaching whom.
That truly is an aha moment. That completely reframes who the innovators were, doesn't it? It challenges those traditional Eurocentric narratives we started with.
Precisely. Somali cartography, Somali navigation. It directly confronts those old stereotypes. It's powerful evidence that African societies were responsible for incredible intellectual achievements in complex fields like navigation, astronomy, geography. This wasn't just basic sailing. It shows a highly developed, sophisticated understanding of the natural world long before the colonial era. It broadens our whole understanding of human ingenuity and where it flourished.
Okay, so we've talked about how amazing this was, but also how fragile the knowledge is. Being largely oral, how is this legacy being preserved today? Is it still slipping away, or are people fighting to keep it alive?
It's a mixed picture. Unfortunately, a lot of this knowledge is still unrecognized by the wider world. And yes, it's very much at risk.
Why?
Well, Somalia has faced decades of political instability, conflict. Historical sites get damaged or destroyed. It makes preservation incredibly difficult.
That's tragic.
It is. But there are dedicated people working against that tide. Academics, archaeologists, local historians, community elders. They're actively trying to find artifacts, study any surviving texts, but crucially, document and preserve the oral traditions.
Talking to the elders.
Exactly. Recording those stories, those songs, those navigational techniques before they disappear. It's absolutely essential work to make sure this incredible chapter of human history isn't completely erased.
So beyond just correcting the history books, why does this matter today? Why should someone listening now care about ancient Somali maps in the 21st century? What's the relevance?
Well, several reasons. First, as we've said, rediscovering and acknowledging this history challenges those outdated Eurocentric views. It helps us build a more honest, more inclusive story of our shared human past. That's important in itself. Second, there might even be practical insights, understanding how ancient Somali navigators worked with the environment, their sustainable practices, their deep knowledge of currents and winds that could potentially offer valuable lessons today.
How so?
Maybe in fields like maritime resource management, understanding climate patterns, even sustainable coastal development. Sometimes ancient wisdom has modern applications.
So, what does this all mean for you, our listener? What's the big takeaway from this deep dive beyond just cool history?
I think the takeaway is that these maps, whether physical or oral, seen or unseen, are incredibly powerful symbols. They represent the ingenuity, the creativity, the sheer resilience of the Somali people and their ancestors. Studying this, even just hearing about it, gives us a much richer, more complex understanding of the sophisticated intellectual traditions that thrived in pre-colonial Africa. It's a window into their worldview, their connection to the sea, their role in global networks.
It changes the picture.
It really does. It expands our definition of what discovery and innovation meant across different cultures and times, urging us to look beyond the most familiar stories.
Well, this journey into ancient Somali cartography has been absolutely fascinating. We've gone from the perilous promise of that huge coastline to the genius of their celestial navigation and symbolic maps, and uncovered this profound yet often forgotten impact they had on global trade and even European exploration. It's not just about missing maps, is it? It's really a testament to the brilliance of a civilization that mastered the oceans.
Absolutely. They navigated vast distances with incredible skill, precision, and this deep ecological knowledge, shaping global history in ways we're only now starting to fully grasp.
A powerful reminder.
It really is.
Yeah,
And this deep dive, I think, reminds us that the quest to understand our world, to map it, to navigate it, that's always been a universal human drive. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?
it's that.
What other vital pieces of history, what other hidden legacies from cultures all around the world are still out there waiting to be uncovered, waiting to reshape how we see our past and maybe even ourselves?
Something to definitely think about as you continue your own journey of discovery.